So you should be able to see my screen, and he understands the functionality behind. He understands the technology ecosystem which governs that kind of those kind of processes in that domain, and so on. Yeah, and so that's where I just thought I'll refresh that why we are looking at the slide, because it links to change management, which further links to business analysis, which further links to the topic of today, which is contemporary practices. Yeah. So what we spoke in last maybe 5 to 7 minutes is obviously necessitating that the clients today are demanding the latest tools and technologies. This is, of course, leading to a fair amount of individualization as well. We are no longer in industrial age where we had a production floor, and then we had about 10 production lines where, in a very static and monotonous way, we produced a car after a car, or we produced a gearbox after a gearbox. Today, it's much more dynamic. Since customer is the king, so obviously the customer service reigns supreme, which means we have to keep a fair amount of localizations and customization in each client practices, so that they do actually cater to the local flavor of the services that's needed by the clients. Yeah. So that is making sure that key employees within an organization are also individuals, and that's a flair which should be recognized well. A lot of business today, guys, is happening via social platforms. Yeah. So we all have some kind of CRM engines which the companies are running to pinpoint the right kind of a target segmentation of customers that they would like to have. Of course, we live in about a world of 7.5 billion people, but not everybody can be your customer. It has to be tailored to certain segmentation which are defined within the total groups of customers, which may end up liking your product and services. And that's the core area where now you will target them with the right marketing approach and branding and etc. Yeah. So this means that we extensively make use of social platforms as of today, right? So, for example, Imarticus itself, yeah, so they also have a very strong CRM engine with which they find out the relevant profiles, which are with the details of which are scattered around on the social media platform. Okay, and then they connect with them as prospects, because they know that looking at that profile, that a certain value add at a certain stage for this candidate, either via change management or business analysis, or maybe machine learning or data sciences or fintech, etc., will be capable to enhance your value in the market. Yeah. So social platforms today are spread all over the place, and that's being used. But then I must say that that's very different from conventional marketing practices, where we had always done more of a publicity blitzkrieg. We had done a lot of marketing and branding exercises. We did a lot of, for example, push of the product in the markets towards the customers, etc. So today it's a lot dependent on the pull of product and services rather than the push. So where does it lead us? It leads us to a next generation insight driven change management, which means today's organization need to pay more attention to the people issues. Organization need to take the guesswork out of managing the change initiatives. When I say change, I mean the change management which must come into the organization, because they have undergone a large transformation. They have changed technology application, they have collapsed the legacy application, they brought in new applications and practices. The process has changed now, it's become more dynamic. This all means that the employees of the organization also have to adapt accordingly, right? And that's what we say, we want to take guesswork out, guys. Yeah. We just want to manage a change initiatives more by insights that we can derive by looking at the data, the true facets of the situation, and the profiling that we may be able to do for our employees for better acclimatization to the change that the organization is bringing in. And for that reason, organizations today are using very high quality predictive analytics to improve the success of the change initiatives which are happening. Yeah. So this means we leverage today on insight driven changes, which are very powerful predictive analytics and research, to design a targeted and highly effective change management strategies. Because eventually, when you bring in a large technology transformation, you implement that, the fact remains, guys, that it's the employees and the users of your company who are going to use that, unless they are also as deft into the new software, into the new applications, right? as anybody else, they won't be able to use it effectively. And hence their productivity, which is supposed to now go 2 times higher because we brought in a lot of contemporary technologies, is actually going to look probably on the negative side. And hence change management is a very, very effective career and in a large demand today because it directly impacts the productivity of a company. All right. So where are we today? Today we are looking at some of the most latest elicitation techniques which a business analyst uses because of their being in the practice of requirement elicitation from the clients. When I say clients, it could be stakeholders. When I say stakeholders, it could be a regional marketing director of a setup of a business unit. It could be the CIO who wants to explain his roadmap. It could be a simple user sitting in a godown who might be able to explain to you the entire supply chain management process when the products start moving from the company's storage from the company plant productions into the warehouses, which are local warehouses where these materials are stocked and then dispatched to the relevant customers as per the orders received. Yep. So techniques from Babcock, which business analysts use, and so let's look at some of them. Okay, now within business analysis as well, guys, I would like to welcome you to the agile word, a word where the business now runs more in a very agile mode. I would say we have redefined the agility of business today. When we say agility of business, what do we mean? We mean, for example, if Vodafone and Airtel are at absolute loggerheads today, okay, with Idea, for example, and let's say if Idea is planning to launch a very strong customer loyalty program, which is going to give tremendous voice and data benefits to the customers, right? And somehow Airtel and Vodafone know about it. So they need to respond. They need to respond probably at the same time or earlier, before Idea launches or let's say Geo launches its own schemes. So in this kind of a competitive situation, if the business has to respond, they have to design certain new marketing practices, fair enough, which can have new genre of let's say data and voice volume discounts or anything else. But the fact is, guys, it needs to be rolled out into the market, which means that those marketing techniques and schemes have to come into their franchisees, into the mainline software systems of let's say Vodafone, so that their franchisees, their partners, their alliance members, their channels can all use that to roll that scheme into the market, which means business needs IT's help. So if let's say a lead time is 2 months, in 2 months, a IT team, which comprises of business analysts as well, has to look at the right requirements, build up that kind of requirements, pass it on to IT, and make sure that they are able to deliver that product and it's rolled out into the business servers of Vodafone, because they want their franchisees to absolutely access that into their local clients or desktops. And when a customer walks into the gallery of a Vodafone, right, he should be the guy should be able to offer that kind of a scheme, which is of course in response to the geo schemes, right? So what we are trying to say is we are living in an agile world, and that's why today's IT also runs on a lot of agile practices. Now, when we say, we are talking about how does a business analyst takes the latest and the greatest of the demands or let's say requirements from its stakeholders, which could be of course business clients. One of the key contemporary practices which we have been seeing in the last few months is called backlog management. So when, let's say, if I am a business analyst, which I actually am, and I go and sit with my stakeholders and discuss on certain processes that we need to change because they are not congenial enough and not dynamic enough to respond to a competitive situation. So what we do is we redesign those processes, we take out certain process steps which are redundant now, we fill in certain new events, new data pointers, new analytics techniques, which just helps to drive the process better. While we do so, we have obviously generated a set of demands. These demands are from the, let's say, from the supply chain stakeholders. And what do they need? They need their supply chain management entire value chain to run faster by 20%, so that their response time to the customer in the market can go up by let's say 13%, which means when the business scenario starts, that is when the customer places their orders, right, you should be able to execute the orders and ensure that the material or services have reached the customer. Now if you are having a rough competitive situation at this point of time, the fact is that you would like your supply chain to move faster, better, right? And that's what we call that we have generated requirements from supply chain management stakeholders to analyze each and every business process, to check around on sales order input process, on delivery issue process, on goods issue process, on invoice generation process, right? Look at each process to say where we can either optimize by automation, right? So for example, we generate invoices for the customer. There was a point of time a couple of years back when there were more manual practices. And then came the fact that we enabled the system to generate invoices by itself, just by looking at the delivery order, which has the customer's ID, the quantity, the product, the SKU, etc., etc., right? So now there's a tremendous benefit because thousands and thousands of invoices are able to be generated very quickly over a period of time by the system itself. So the original set of requirements which we took out from the customer stakeholders, right? In, let's say, phase one is the set of requirements from where we selected few and we developed them and put them into production. But the ones which got left behind, we call them a backlog. So today, what we do is we always look at the backlog, which is existing backlog, then reprioritize those requirements based on what is the latest in competitive situation, how are we doing otherwise from a process point of view, etc., etc. In light of that, we take a decision that okay, that this particular product can be launched. So this means now what is backlog management? It is picking and choosing prioritized requirements out of the bag of requirements, right, based on a certain priority. So this means that we determine what activities the agile team will get engaged in. Yeah. So order is determined by priority or strictly by business value. So we would like to pick up those requirements which are contributing directly to the profit line or the top line of the company. So the backlog requirements are then picked up, resized by the team, okay, converted into work items, allocated to the different members of the team, and that's how we create a repository which is constantly managed so as to ensure that the activities needed to fulfill each item in the backlog are properly identified, outlined, planned, and prioritized before the next sprint. Yep. So this is the practice for a backlog management process. But let me introduce you a little bit more to the agile word. So you may have heard of agile and scrum, right? That is basically the smartest practice in IT development, which we use to either develop a POC or we do few fresh configurations and codings and testing. So we develop new products now. So wherever there's a working like that, we typically now prefer the agile methodology. Now, in today's contemporary business elicitation practices, guys, the client also gives you a business analyst, and by the title and role of a product owner. So he's the person from business who is responsible for managing the product backlog. So he's the guy who's going to pick and choose what prioritized requirements we can pick up from the backlog for development. Is that related to the latest vision, plans, and goals of the company right now? Yeah. Is that a requirement which, if he picks and chooses, is going to contribute value to the business? Yeah. So product owner is a client role which ensures that the product backlog, okay, is transparent, is clear to all, and it also guides the scrum and agile teams where to start working on it from. Yeah. So in this way, the product owner ensures that the development team from our side, which is the service provider side, ensures and understands the items in the product backlog are developed to the level they need to be developed to, right? So what am I talking, guys? I'm talking a very collaborative mode of working with the client SMEs, okay, and that's across all IT infrastructure as of today, typically on the application side. Yeah. Then from a product owner's role, I mean, it's a singular person who may represent that what business needs to be developed from a requirement perspective. Yeah. So we largely leave a lot of things on product owner, okay, and no one is able to proceed forward till the time product owner is able to give its go on the requirements. Yeah. So that was the backlog management part. There's another very, very, very interesting and challenging elicitation technique called balance scorecard. it's more of a strategic planning tool which business analysts today use quite extensively to ensure that the organization can transform its goals, its ideas, its vision into actual actionable practices. Yeah. So it essentially, guys, it's a technique to take out the requirements from business. It allows monitoring how the business is doing in terms of achieving those goals. So we take requirements from business, we develop them, we deploy them in the system. Business uses that those new functionalities to service customers better, and then they tell us that how did our practice go about helping them and supporting them. Yeah. So what do we do in business in balance scorecard? Typically, it's examining and monitoring key performance indicators to see that if they are performing as expected. Yeah. And if not, we do a root cause analysis in terms of shedding light on what are the key problem areas in this case. Typically, guys, this helps in areas of finance, customer relations, learning and growth, and all kinds of internal business processes which help in this direction. All right. So what do we do in this? Essentially, business scorecard technique involves tracking the progress of the entire organization against four metrics. One is called learning and growth. One is business process management. The third one is customer, and the fourth one is finance, which essentially now means what? That the key strength of balanced scorecard lies in the fact that it combines the previous finance metrics with the non-finance metrics which exist as of today to move forward from where we are today. Yeah. Okay. Let's see in detail how this is actually used. So, balanced scorecard was developed by Kaplan and Norton. They were basically management strategists, and they help to define four distinct area, guys, from where rather large part of requirements from the business comes in. Yeah, and that is finance, customer, international business processes, and learning and growth. Yeah. So essentially, balance scorecard offers a structure for translating the strategic objectives of the company into well-defined performance measures. The interest, okay, now let's explore the four different areas. And this is something which is not new to you guys. Customer, finance, processes, business processes, and learning and growth. It's something which are like the one of the four some of the prime areas where every organization today is working on. From a financial standpoint, I think we understand that perspective. It's important because financial prospects of shareholders in an organization, how good they need to be measured, because that's a direct value contributor to your profit lines and your top lines as well. Yeah. Similarly, customer, right? So there is a need for organizations to create customer value to succeed financially. Yeah. So, but what are those things which the customers value? What are the areas that should be improved? What kind of progress should be done, and how should we measure it? These are the questions which a balanced scorecard asks. And if you understand this and try to answer it, I think you will be straight getting your requirements from the business. For example, what are the things customers value? Yeah, this is a question which I, as a business analyst, am asking the client business. The client business, I'm going to say smaller lead time to ensure that the product has reached, reached the customers so that they can service their further customers well. Okay. Today, a lot of people don't talk on cost; they actually talk more on value. Price may not be the most important factor these days for a large part of categories of products, because what people like or what customers today need is the value part. But are we able to articulate that value? Well, if the product has, then yes. If that doesn't have, then we need to build those values. And for building those values, what do we need to do? Well, we need to sit together and figure it out from business point of view and technology point of view, right? And that's what we call that. Hey, when I ask these kind of questions to business, I do get to know what are the key areas customers value. I translate those areas into actually requirements. I develop those requirements along with IT so that we can enable the client's IT systems to drive the process in that way. Okay, so that is how I'm directly linking what my systems can do for the customer and what are the things that my customer really values. All right. Similarly for internal business processes. See, so processes are something which is often called a lifeline of organization, right? They need to be efficient, they need to be effective, so that whatever customer value that we pass on to the customers does get enhanced, right? Now, the idea here is that when we explore the changes that we may need to do to the business processes of a client, right? Obviously, let's say by a simple technique, we benchmark them against probably the more successful player in the same industry in the market, right? So we get to understand that how our processes are conducted and how the process of our competitor are being conducted. Now, when we know certain specific flavors of what do they do, how do they do, what we do is that our client is going to set up its own recipe shop and bring out something which is innovative enough. Now that innovation is going to get plugged back into the business process so as to make it more optimum. And that is something which will result into profits. Which means now, guys, if you see this journey end to end, we have dedicated a sufficient amount of time to actually build those requirements. Yeah. And conventionally, we used to, as business analysts, we used to use practices like, for example, questionnaires, talking directly to the stakeholder, etc., etc. But today, the fact is also that, because it's such a digital world that typically people may not have a lot of time to sit with you comfortably and discuss with you all the requirements they want to give you, which means we need to put our own insight to get those requirements, and then we can just have a quick validation with the stakeholders, which means further that, guys, we better know what are the latest and the greatest in elicitation techniques so that we can use them, eventually to get what we need from our stakeholders. If you ask me, a balanced scorecard may look like that, where learning, process, customer, and financials. Frankly, and I know, right, that these four things anyway, anyways, they synergize with each other. Customer is inevitably linked to financials. Yep. From servicing customers, we get new learnings. We use those learnings to draw innovations. We use those innovations to make our business practices better. We make our business practices better or a process better. We go back to the customer, okay, and then give him a taste of what the latest and the greatest that we are trying to bring in. And that, if he likes, is something which is a straight input to business, right? So where does our BA land up in these kind of techniques? Yep. BAs, guys, typically can really help in terms of defining the knowledge gap in the business and understand how knowledge management, can be improved across the business. So these kind of contributions which assist the business in developing metrics is very useful. So for example, we were doing a project with a client with we didn't have metrics, right? And then another client which came up, we did define such metrics for them which were quite strategic in nature, and post that I remember that we leveraged and reused those ones for another 2 to 3 clients. That is because it gives the perfect clarity of what our KPIs are when we are servicing the customer. Now, if we use Balance Scorecard as a strategic tool to track the key performance indicators in the areas of, let's say, finance or customer, etc., what we are trying to do is that we want, maybe like it's like one eye watch all kind of a thing, okay, so that we can implant those standardized KPIs on most of the people. See, because eventually it's a change management exercise. You're devising new KPIs. Why? Because that's the way the world is moving ahead in terms of technology. Okay. Which means that the client, customers, and employees are also going to feel unnerved about it, but no worries. In the next 3 months, when we set up this small shop to implement a certain set of modules, we will also train the users and employees accordingly into that. Yeah. So which is means, guys, that larger strategic initiatives which are leading to actual transformation exercises, which is further leading to application support and technology support and etc., right? The idea is that the discussion to contain the risks of any kind of a severe change management must be done earlier. And in that planning, okay, what we need to do is that we need to include some of those operational issues which you have seen while we used important elicitation techniques like, for example, balance scorecard, etc., etc. Because when you're using that to extract your requirements from the client, the also an important thing is that it keeps an eye over strategic areas like finance, customer, etc. And then since we have already allocated KPIs at each line item, typically, it's a it's a good win for everybody. All right, the next guys, the next elicitation technique is data flow diagram, and I think you guys should can kind of are familiar with the data flow diagram, which you may have used just to make a simple process flow, okay, which is a combination of process steps, and data, and event, and people. Yeah, so that simple kind of a flow chart diagram is something which is also being used very effectively as a elicitation technique today. All right, so this slide does show you how a data flow diagrams, tells us that what kind of information do we need within a process, right? This kind of a graphical description is very useful because when we use it as a elicitation technique, we sit with our stakeholders, we draw these detailed plans with them to show graphical flow of data within a system, or a flow of data from an outside system into an inside system, or exchange of data between two different systems, yeah, etc. So it's, of course, we have all used these kind of things, right? Essentially, it's user friendly and easy for designers like you and me to just interpret where did the process flow happen, what data did it pick up, what interface it passed through, what event happened to change the shape of that, what kind of a user was required with what kind of skill to implement that kind of a process. So the good thing about this elicitation technique is it uses a lot of cause and effect sequences and order of the processes. It includes data processes, stores, external entities, and etc. So using those kind of a drag and drop arrangement, we create data flow diagrams, which I'll show you sometimes here. Yeah, a little further. So it's basically the process part, or it's like more like a bubble or a function, okay, which transforms an incoming data flow into an outgoing data flow. Now, if we are able to use this to capture an end-to-end value chain for a process and the data which comes along with it, I think we are capturing a sufficient amount of detailing, and those detailings helps us to discuss that in complete, kind of an artifact with the business guys, which then tell us that where they think the problem areas are, there are bottlenecks, there are constraints, and that's what is translating into a business pain. So essentially, as business analysts, when we sit with our stakeholders, we are trying to cater to alleviate their business pain point using certain technology applications or solutions. Yeah. So this is how, guys, and I want to show you a full-fledged diagram here. So these kind of data flows we use extensively to carve out the relationship with for our client, with its customers, with its suppliers, with its external databases. So anything and everything becomes our stakeholder. A joint alliance is a stakeholding. All their suppliers are their stakeholders, all the customers are stakeholders. Any kind of an external entity which is relevant to our process and systems, we use them into our data flow diagram. Okay, this is a good example probably. Yeah. So if you look at it, guys, there's a buyer which is making a purchase. Yeah. And from the purchase comes out the purchasing data. So for the products purchase and for the inventory, right, we update the buyer's account history. On the other front, we update the purchasing trend databases. All right, that is further used, to generate a daily marketing report, because it has like what? It has the buyer's account information, it has daily buyer's history, it has the history which they have pulled out from the database. There are daily purchasing trends, right? All the information is plugged in. They do it over millions of customers, for example, eventually to predict that if this is what is today, what's going to be probably the likely demand of the product tomorrow. Yeah. So again, if you see, it's more of a facilitation technique which helps to carve out new business practices, process steps, which can eventually help to enhance the effectiveness of an organization. Yep. Another very pertinent things, guys, thanks to the big data, which is now the flavor of the market, we also have a elicitation technique called data mining. Yeah. It essentially, what do we do in that is we pick up the raw data from the client systems. Okay. And there are tons of data, right? Today there are like, millions of bytes of data generated every single day, because there are 7.5 billion people who consume products, services, etc. There are millions of organizations which are working day and night to service those customers, right? So, and these organizations are linked with channel partners, with various facets of things, right? What happens is the considerable amount of data is generated, but was it being used some time back? I'm afraid no. So it's only since about last 4 to 5 years, since the data analytics came into practice, we are using data mining, yeah, to pull out that data from systems, mine it, analyze it, all right, look into it, draw inference from it by creating certain patterns, by creating certain predictive models, right? That is something, because eventually, where is this coming from? The inference is coming from by extracting the knowledge through examining huge amount of data. What is a data? A data is the truth, because that data symbolizes the business relationship between the organization and its customers, but that doesn't lie. So from a single source of truth, which is the system, we pulled out such data, which can stretch from what? Some marketing study done, some business administration fraud detected, some scientific exploration, some production control and engineering techniques. So any kind of such things is useful to throw out information which we can analyze. We analyze that, we retrofit them into certain data models, and from there we draw inference which is useful to take better decisions. Okay, so essential data mining tips for effective data mining is: one, consider the background knowledge. It's important because from a discovery point of view, when you want to discover new patterns, processes, and understandings, we need to do this activity first. Then comes build-in interactivity, which means the processes involved in data mining need to be interactive, because one side you have data, other side you have person or people or user, right? Their interaction is important because it enables your audience or your stakeholder to concentrate primarily on the examination of patterns, because eventually only those patterns will yield the result. Yep. And data mining also includes data knowledge from the databases, because it's essentially for user to cover an extensive range of knowledge and data sets during the data mining process. So a very large set of data are consumed. We have the right analytics tools which are capable to build to consume those data. For example, let's say typically R, Python, these kind of languages today in the market. So earlier we always had some kind of an Excel sheet which can record, we can analyze up to maybe 20, 30, 40,000 records comfortably, right? But beyond that, it used to run into a little difficulty, right? And then came our Python, which can consume much more data to give us the right trends and the plots. Okay, all right. So guys, I didn't want to maybe speak so much also. I would rather also like to focus now some of the queries which the audience today may have. So guys, in case you have any queries which point to maybe some kind of a career decision that you are taking, whether it wants to go into direction of change management, whether it wants to go in the direction of business analysis, whether it wants to go into the a different direction called data sciences, anything like that. So I think 10 minutes we must spend on what are your aspirations, where you are today as such, how do you think this kind of things can help you out. So I mean, effectively, this webinar is to tell you what are the latest trends and practices, what is hot and what is not so hot, and if something is hot, how you can enable yourself to learn that skill set, right, and then step forward in that direction. And then those directions are plenty. It could be a change manager position, it could be a business analysis position, it could be learning new techniques on requirement elicitation, it could be learning something about agile and scrum and getting certified, right? So all these, typically what I'm talking, yes, I understand that these are a lot of roles which are within the IT ecosystems, but even on the products and services side, These roles are now fairly populated. Yeah. Okay, so I think I'll just pause here, give you some moments to digest things, and then you can ask me questions which you think are important for you, and then I would like to answer them. Hey Amber, I'll see those queries from the audience in the questions drop down, right? Just one follow-up. So I tell you, hi, you don't. No, I think guys, I can read your question. So Amber, if you can mute them all, I will read the question and I'll answer that. That's fine. Okay, so the question that I see here is there a scope for non-programming backgrounds, right? Student as well? Yes, of course. Absolutely right, guys. In fact, to be honest with you, I myself from an absolutely non-programming background. I just at some point of time, maybe 10 years back, I used to be a supply chain management domain guy, right? And from there, I did something called business analysis, became a BA, business analyst, came into the industry, and then on my way forward, and then I, did a lot of projects which are essentially to analyze the requirements from business, effectively get them done as products and services from the IT teams, and then etc. etc. So non-programming, oh sorry, programming is not a prerequisite for any of such careers. Yeah. The second question is change management. Is it part of project management? So the answer is no. Well, in a small project, maybe your project manager is responsible to manage the change as well. But in any kind of project which is larger than that, we have a very strategic position called change manager. Who is the change manager? So, for example, Imarticus runs a certification which is certified by SAP, and it's certified by IIBA as well. They run a program called change management. Now in that you learn three skill sets. One is that of a business analyst, the second is agile and scrum, the third is project management. Now why would you learn all that? Effectively because all the three components collapse together to make you very skillful as a change manager. Who's a change manager? Who's managing a change? This means right from the beginning of the project, when the business is giving you requirements, what they want to do, why do they want to do, which process they want to change, which technology should be a better fit for them, this all is pointing to likely questions which a business analyst handles. So your first skills of business analyst certification helps you to do that role where you sit with the stakeholders and get the right requirements, and effectively pass them on to the IT team. When you pass them on to the IT team, that time when the IT develops the let's say either it's a software or a non-software, whichever way it is, the IT teams, when they make those configurations, coding, programming, testing, you act as an agile coach or a scrum master. Yep. And that is the second skill set, which is the body of the change management program from Imarticus. While you do that, the third skill set is project management. Now, typically we have seen guys in the industry today, you normally are supposed to do at least have more than one skill. So it's not very uncommon that your business analyst is your project manager as well. Yep. Your business analyst is your scrum master as well. Your scrum master is project manager as well. Yep. So this is how today these multiple skills, in you which give you the right value in the market as well. Okay, the next question is scoreboard analysis will come in which phase of the cycle? Yeah, so good question, Rajesh. So this will come not in SDLC, but before that. Because before software development life cycle, you have the business analysis phase. So during business analysis, you use certain elicitation techniques depending on the scenarios, which are used to take the right requirements from your business stakeholders. Yeah, so that is where what we did today. We did a couple of contemporary techniques of requirement elicitation, and that is absolutely part and parcel of your business analysis phase. Guys, if you have any more supplementary question, please keep putting in the question window, and then I can keep caring for that. Yes, of course, Sambar, I can see their queries in the questions window. Yeah, that's right. Okay, one question which has come up is can I be a coder and a business analyst both? Yes, of course, Satish. Today, actually, some of the best business analysts are the ones who actually were doing either configuration or coding at some point of time. Now, why it is like this? If you are a coder today, you can effectively assemble a code which will help you to execute a particular process, right? Which means sitting in the background, you're able to understand the process, its complexity, the configuration it needs, or the coding it needs to make it behave in a certain manner. What did it give you? It gives you a terrific amount of control over the process, which also means, Satish, that your process centricity is very high. If that is good, then I must say that that is one of the fundamental skills we need to, to groom you into a business analyst. Now, what will a business analyst do? A business analyst will effectively look at process optimization. And don't forget, you have been a coder, you've been a configurator, for example, so you can anyways actually put one foot in the technology and stay in the process, but your other foot will remain on the business side, which means you will sit with the business stakeholders to understand what change needs to come in and why. Okay, and this is where, guys, yes, coders can be very effective business analysts as well. Yep, guys, any more questions? So while you might like to pop up some questions, I just want to say that today change management is a very healthy practice. It has large demands in the market. Typically, the roles are called change managers, but within that, we have three different roles which a lot of probably people today in the audience can be capable of. One is the business analyst, one is the scrum master, the third one is the project manager. While project manager controls the overall project, business analyst is the one which is very active in the initial phases of the project, but that needs a separate skill set. And scrum master is somebody who's acting very actively in the middle part, where actual software development life cycle is happening. So if you see this way, we cover requirements, we cover SDLC, and we cover the overall project management perspective as well. And these three things put together are called change management program. Yep. So the business analysis part is certified by International Institute of Business Analysis, right? That's the global body, IIBA. But apart from that, all the three components are certified by SAP as well. I mean, that's maybe a couple of reasons like that. You know that this is a very popular course. Yep, and it's running in retail and online both. And it makes sure that you pick and learn exactly, the kind of processes, methodologies, tools, techniques which a business analyst or a scrum master use today, and makes you very proficient in these kind of setups where any kind of a development life cycle is going to happen, whether it's a software or a non-software, right? But you are capable to lead those projects, in either of these roles. All right, thanks, guys. Thanks for your attentions and your time. I hope this session was useful for you. For any more further inquiries that you might like to do in change management, either in business analysis, Scrum Master, project management, any kind of such certifications, please feel free to reach out to imarticus.com. And I think somebody will, kind of give you the right attentions to, take you into some kind of a small career counseling session, which can be probably useful for you to get yourself further insights of what you think you should do best to fit into this emerging market better. Yep. But as of now, I think good for being together on this, and I would like to probably sign off now. And thank you for your attentions. Bye bye.